go find the right place, but this is the Head to Toe webinar. So this is Laura Kesselman here, and I will be leading your webinar today. And on behalf of the Department of Health, I want to thank you very much for presenting at the conference and being part of this really historic event as we are approaching our 22nd year. So here I am. I think this is 2 years ago, but I call myself the Head to Toe groupie. I have been involved with Head to Toe from day one. So I think I have a couple of things to share about the conference and can give you some good insight as to what to expect if this is your first time around, and let you know about the changes if you've been at Head to Toe in the past. But I always like to tell people a little story about Head to Toe because this is my longest standing conference that I have worked on in my life, and I hope there will be many years ahead. And it's something I hold near and dear, and I do like to share the story of where the Head to Toe name came from. So 22 years ago, I was very pregnant, or I had just delivered my first child. I guess I had just delivered my first child, and so there were a lot of children baby issues around, and we were all sitting around the table talking about this new and exciting school health conference that the Department of Health wanted to put together. Somehow I ended up bursting out into a chorus of head, shoulders, knees, and toes when we were talking about covering the full mental, behavioral health and physical health of children, and the rest is history. So we decided Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes was a little too long for a conference name, and ended up with the Head to Toe Conference, or From Head to Toe. And now, we're a little like Terminator. A lot of people just call us H2T. So that's a little story from you before we get started about the Head to Toe Conference. And I'm tired of looking at myself, so let's move on. So today what we're going to be covering is a little history of Head to Toe, which I sort of gave you the personal fun part, sort of how the stuff works, what you need to know, and strategies to consider for adult learning principles, which I think people find sort of helpful as we go through. You guys will notice, I think you've all started to take advantage of the comment section or the chat section. Please go ahead and put your comments on there. I will be sort of glancing over. I like to see comments coming through. It's very difficult sitting at my office talking to myself, which maybe, I don't know, that's maybe every day for me, but to be presenting and not getting any kind of feedback sometimes is a little challenging. So feel free, you will not be interrupting, to ask any questions if you want me to repeat anything, or if there's anything else I can do with you. Also on the call from my staff is Jasmine, who has been working with many of you as our speaker liaison. Jasmine will be able to answer any questions as well. So if you have anything specific that needs to be followed up with, you can put it on the chat or email her directly, and that's jasmine@kessjones.com, and I'm sure she'll probably be typing that in, so you have that information. So again, feel free to reach out to Jasmine if there's anything specific that you need in regards to your presentation. So what is Head to Toe? So Head to Toe, again, 22nd year. I always like to tell people that and remind people we are a conference for school nurses, counselors, social workers, and anybody else working with youth, helping to improve their health and academic success, which is their ultimate outcomes. Really, it grew out of a conference that was called Desert High a million years ago. That was more of a wellness conference that the Department of Health and Public Ed supported, and out of that came the recognition that we really needed to have a place that all of our school health professionals can go and learn and share, and the rest is history. So the conference has gone through slight changes. We are always trying to do something new and fun and different, but the one thing that has not changed is the quality of the programming that we provide, and the fact that we like to highlight a lot of our local programs. And this, of course, would not be possible without your support and being part of the conference. Many of our attendees have actually told us that this is the main way that they obtain their licensure, and it is also the only conference that they may attend throughout the year. So it's very important for people in this community to be a part of Head to Toe. It's almost like school reunion, and part of the fun part about Head to Toe is seeing everybody see each other once a year, connect, friends, meeting new friends, and just coming back together as a group is always a great thing. So again, with 22 years, we've been doing this, and some things again have changed, and some things still the same. What's still the same is we have a lot of challenging issues in the state, and that there are a lot of great ideas out there in the community that we can share on how we can make things better for our children. So let's look a little bit about who attends Head to Toe. I said a little bit earlier, nurses, counselors, and social workers. And I really want to point out that this is not only who attends, but this is who we actually target with our programming, how we make our selection, and who we develop our conference for. Now, can teachers attend? Can administrators attend? Absolutely, but they are not our primary audience. And so we do ask you to remember that this is who this conference is designed for. So you'll notice, and I think I have a little pointer here, maybe not, but the big green sections, other than other, which tends to be just a big connector, are the nurses, counselors, and social workers who are representing probably about 50% specifically of our target population. We do have, again, health assistants, medical assistants, public health people, SBHC providers, and again, the administrators and teachers that we've talked about, as well as students. We also like to just remind people we do have a student track that's running at the same time as Head to Toe. At points, they will be integrated into our conference, but we have a whole section dedicated to creating peer educators, and we have about 60 students that come to that. And so we've always had some kind of youth involvement with Head to Toe. And we also always encourage people, if you can have youth as part of your presentation, people really do enjoy that. So it's something that, you know, if it's something you can incorporate, we want you to consider that. So who attends Head to Toe? I want you to look at this chart because I think it's important. Notice that the largest chunk of our attendees have been in the profession for 20 plus years. So what does this mean? This means that you do have people with a great deal of experience. So they do sometimes ask for a little deeper dive in the content. They don't expect all basic information. However, we do have that small percentage of people that are, you know, if you add the less than 12 months and 1 to 3 years, it's about even. So there also is a big mix of people that just are new to the industry and won't understand necessarily all the acronyms and terminology that you throw out to them. One of the things that I recommend to our presenters is when they start the presentation to get to know their audience a little bit and who's in the room. What you might want to do, and sometimes it's a great way to do a little physical activity, is have people stand up and identify either how many years they've been in the profession, what fields they're in, where they're from throughout the state. That way, before you even start your presentation, you know specifically who's in your audience and maybe can do some slight alterations on your content if you need to. If you find that you have a very urban group and you have a lot of rural examples or vice versa, or you have a lot of really advanced people, maybe pushing a little more time in your presentation. Some of them are, like I said, deep divey issues and not so much 101 information. So just some things for you to look at as you're looking at the charts. We have about 30% of people are actually from Albuquerque, and the rest from all over the state. We tell people this is the worst day for your kid to get sick at school because it's the chance that your school nurse is at Head to Toe or your counselor or social worker is pretty high because we have some really great representations over 80 cities in New Mexico, and again, both urban and rural environments. So please keep that in mind when you're preparing for your audience. So for example, a program that might work great in Albuquerque, you need to consider how's that going to play in Tomei or someplace that doesn't have the same kind of resources. And if you can give them access to resources within their communities, that's great as well too. So here's what you need to know about how the conference works. So first of all, there is a speaker corner on the Head to Toe website, which we have been starting to upload all the forms and the details that you need to know. So anything that we're referencing here, whether it's a deadline date, whether it's a form or information, it is going to be up on the speaker corner. We also have some link to some great resources, such as putting together your PowerPoint presentations or some of this learning methodology information I'll be addressing. So feel free to check out that speaker corner if you have something specifically related to speakers. It's very likely going to be there. This is also where we'll be posting this webinar. So if you do need to go back for any reason or want to hear this again, you're welcome to join us and watch it on there. So check out the speaker corner. It is on the Head to Toe website. So let's talk a little bit about some of these logistics. So lodging. I think at this point, if you have needed lodging, you should have already requested it through Jasmine. And Jasmine, if you can confirm that and the dates and if we can accept any more people. But basically, I think it's 65 miles or more. We will cover the one night's lodging. We will be making those reservations at the Hyatt Hotel. You should be getting a confirmation directly from the hotel, and you'll be getting a follow-up from us just to let you know that a reservation has been made. We will reimburse for mileage. There will be a mileage reimbursement form on that speaker corner, or you can also, we'll have some on site if that's something that you need, and you can fill out for reimbursement on mileage. Registration, we did offer speakers and will continue to offer speakers a 50% discount on the current registration rate. We totally wish we can give you 100% and waive your registration. Unfortunately, we just don't have the fiscal resources to do that. So this is our gift and our recognition to you by waiving the registration fee. We do try to keep our registration fee as low as possible so that we can not create any barriers for people throughout the state to attend. The Department of Health does subsidize the conference dramatically, as well as our sponsors and exhibitors give us a little bit of additional support. But please know that the fee that you're paying is barely covering the cost of the food to actually feed you, and everything else is being covered by the Department of Health, and again, the sponsors that are helping us out. So you were given a registration code. If you haven't registered and you need that code, reach out to Jasmine, or she'll put it up here. So just so that you know, that's what's going to get you that 50% discount when you register. So go ahead and get yourself registered. If you're only attending your session and then plan to leave, you do not need to register. This is only people who plan to attend the entire conference above and beyond their own session. So again, if you're not attending any of the conference but your own session, we will still have a name badge for you at registration, but you do not need to register as an attendee. We will be covering the cost of your parking. As you can see, where we can, we're trying to make funds available. So what you do need to do is there will be a table that you will stop by to pick up a little ticket to put in the machine in the parking garage. Parking that we're covering is only the parking in the structure that's right off of Martin Luther King Boulevard, just west of Broadway. So as you're coming off the freeway on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, you'll cross the traffic light on Broadway. There's that ramp that goes up, and that's the garage that we're allowed to park in. Do leave a little extra time. There is a short, healthy walk from parking to registration, so plan for that time. And then we'll give you a special ticket to get out of the parking structure, and we will cover that for you. So just make sure that you do that. Each session will be assigned a room host. These are volunteers of work studies that will be supporting and helping the conference. Their job will be to greet you, to make sure everything's okay with your AV, to if you need lights turned off, they'll help you do that. If you need materials handed out, they'll also make sure that you get started on time and that you get end on time. If you notice in the picture, there's a woman holding up a 15 minutes left sign. They can work with you if you don't want a sign held up, if you have another system. Their job will be to help you end on time. And anything that you need to support, they will be there to do that. If your room gets full, they'll make sure people know that there are no more seats available. So they're really there to take the stress off of the logistics of the room for you. So please let them help you as much as you need assistance. They also will be able to access our AV people if you have any technical issues that happen. So as far as room setup, we do try to set up the majority of our rooms in either classrooms, the classroom style, which is a table with chairs behind it, as is the picture on the slide. We also can set rooms up in rounds or some unique sets. You would have had to request that on your form, and then we will do the best to accommodate it. We traditionally can accommodate most of the requests that we get, but every once in a while we can't, merely because we might not have time to change your room setup, and we do have a limited amount of room. So please make sure, if a special set is imperative to the success of your session, that you have let us know that in advance, so we can coordinate that, especially before we assign the rooms. So handouts, we do not make any copies of handouts, but if you would like to bring handouts, you're welcome to distribute them. We do load materials onto the conference app, which all of the attendees will have access to, and we'll encourage you to sign up on to as well. And we sometimes also put handouts on the website as well. So AV equipment, every room will be set with an LCD projector, a laptop, a screen, and speakers that you can plug into if your presentation has sound or video or music. So that will all be preset in the room. If you have sent us your PowerPoint presentations in advance, which we do ask you to do, we will have them preloaded onto your laptop and possibly even up on the screen. So when you walk in, you can sort of breathe a sigh of relief knowing that everything is there. Now, we do know that frequently people make last-minute changes on their presentation. If you do, you can either deliver it when you check in, and we'll get it over onto your computer. You can also load it in yourself if you need to, or ask an AV tech to load it. But we do ask you not to show up at the last minute, because that's when technical problems happen, and we don't want anyone being flustered because of that. So do know, and if you send us at least your draft or your first one, at least we have something. So in case you show up and your thumb drive doesn't work, at least you have an older version that you know we have a copy of. Or if you've changed it even at midnight, the night before your presentation, email it to us, then we can at least access it or get it over to our AV company. So again, we want to support you as much as possible to make the technical side work out smoothly. Usually a clicker, what do you call those? A remote will be provided on request. They tend to walk away, so it's likely, even if you've asked for one, there might not be one sitting in the room waiting for you. Please talk to your room host, and we'll make sure we get one over to you quickly. But they frequently disappear, so sometimes it might have been left and the last speaker put it in their briefcase by mistake, or it's just disappeared. So please note that that is something we do have on hand, but that might not be there for you if you have asked. If you are doing any kind of panel discussion, there will be microphones. Now, we do have some smaller rooms that we won't put mics in, but a lot of the rooms will have mics, and a panel, it's usually shared mics. We do not do one microphone for each presenter. The microphones, for the most part, are wireless handhelds that are put on the podium so that you could take them off if you need to. We tend not to do lavaliers, which are the little clip-ons in the smaller room. So if that is a mandatory must-have because you're doing an example of jumping jacks and you want to have a microphone, you got to let us know that so we can make sure we can accommodate that. Also, I forgot to mention with the computers, if you built your presentation on a Mac and you are a Mac user and you would like to use your Mac instead of the laptop we provide, we do ask that you bring your own computer then and any adapters, because as you all know, Macs don't talk with most projectors. You need an adapter, also known as a dongle, and make sure that you bring that with you. We can provide the tech support on that if you do have issues, but we don't. We will have some extra cables, but not enough if a large group of people bring Macs. So that's something Mac users are used to doing, and we just want to remind you, bring your cables if you need. And again, if you have any AV problems, just talk to your room host. We'll get someone into your room as soon as possible. But the best way to avoid any problems is to send your materials to us in advance and show up early enough to test it. So that's my best advice on that. So want to talk a little bit about the conference app. This will be our third year having an app, and a lot of our attendees really like it, and it's also a great tool for the speakers as well. So you will be getting an email letting you know when the app is ready to launch. You will then need to load that app onto your phone or tablet or whatever other device you're using, and then you will actually need to log into that app. You will get a separate email with directions to log in. Once you log in, if you're registered, you will see your already built agenda based on the sessions you selected. If you did not, then you'll actually get an opportunity to select the sessions that you want to go to. You'll also be able to see a list of anybody, I believe, that signed up to attend your session to give you an idea. You can set up the profile so attendees can find you, or if they want to reach out to you afterwards and read a little bit about you, you can set up there. Your bio and session information will all be preloaded into the app so people can learn about your session and about you. You can actually have conversations, you can post questions, you can set meetings with people. So it's a really great tool, and we highly encourage you to take advantage of it when you're at the conference. And it's great if all of our speakers do build out their profiles for the attendees. So here is our short list of things that make attendees grumpy, which is a nice way of, not grumpy is a very nice, gentle word, let me just say. These is based on years and years of session evaluation. So this is not us just making this up. This is what the attendees have told us year after year for not only head to toe, but for all of our conferences. So the number one complaint we usually get is that the session did not match the description. Now, I know a lot of times the descriptions are written a couple months, many months sometimes, before you actually do the presentation. Please, if you have not done so, take a quick look back at the website, go read your description and make sure it matches what you're actually covering and that it really is clear of what the attendees are going to get out of your session, especially if you've made any modifications or decided you want to do a slightly different approach. We're happy to make those changes. We would rather have your information to be accurate than have an attendee upset that they've gone into a session and it's not what they thought was going to be addressed. Speakers reading to them, I don't really need to say anything more than that. We all think we don't do it. I actually am going to tell you right now I'm not reading anything because I know this content really well. I do have some notes just to remember to tell you things, but I think A, it makes for a better presentation, and B, if you can just read to them, then you really don't need to be there. Attendees can read for themselves. I feel the same way about PowerPoints. If they can just read the PowerPoint and get everything out of the presentation, then you're not serving the purpose that you need to, which is really being a great resource for the attendees. So please take that into account. Get comfortable with your content. You know this stuff. You don't need to read notes. And I know it's hard speaking in public sometimes, but they're there to hear you because you have something great to share. So not being able to hear the speaker is another issue. We have a lot of speakers who say, I don't need a microphone. I know I've done it myself too. I have a loud voice. I say, I don't need a microphone. Maybe I don't need a microphone, but maybe there's somebody in the attendees that might have a hearing impairment, and so they just can't hear, and they would really appreciate the sound being through a microphone. So please take that into account. We also pay for those darn microphones, so let's use them. So please don't dismiss the microphone if there's one for you in the room. Information that isn't for them. We talked a little about this, and content that is too basic. We sort of addressed those a little bit earlier in the demographics. We do want to make sure that you know who you're talking to and that you're providing them with what they need so that they actually can go and implement change behavior, share information. So let's make sure that we're meeting their needs at the end of the day. So I don't know. This is on the attendee side, so things that make them uncomfortable. I call it acronym overload. We use a tremendous amount of acronyms in our industry. Sometimes we assume everybody knows what we're talking about. If you use a lot of acronyms, give them an acronym sheet. We can put it on the app and tell them, hey, go along with the acronym sheet, if you need help. So just and make sure the first time you use an acronym, you define it, even if it seems obvious to you. It won't be obvious to everyone else. And what happens is people hear an acronym and then they get stuck. They can't get past that. So let's make it easy. Politics and religion. I don't know if I need to go into this, but don't. If you think a political joke, an inference, a reference, anything about religious issues, please stay away from it. Attendees are very sensitive to these issues. They don't belong at the conference. So and sometimes maybe they don't even belong at our dinner table. So let's just remember to keep those out of the conversations, even if you think it's a joke or something. The other thing is sales pitches. If you have a product, a specific product you recommend, a specific company that you work with, if you represent a specific company, we want to make sure that these are educational, informational sessions, and that we are not trying to sell a product. Remember, this Department of Health conference as well. They cannot endorse a specific product, and attendees really don't want to feel like they've paid for a sales pitch. So let's please be sensitive to that. And before I change the slide, has anyone else noticed? And Fred, yes, I think that your presentation is different because your presentation is about that. And I certainly think it's absolutely appropriate. I think most people know what when we're talking about politics and religion in the sense of being thrown into a conversation that it's not pertinent to the topic. So I absolutely understand that, Fred. So you are good to go. And before I switch slides, does anyone notice that this woman's hand is exceptionally large? So I just noticed that, and it's scaring me a little bit. So thank you, Melanie, for the haha, because I just looked at it and it just freaked me out. So next, and I'm moving forward because I know you're busy. I want to get this done for you, and hopefully I'm giving you information that's helpful. So things that make our off sad, like a little sad puppy, are actually sessions that are too long or too short. So you're going to say, well, people want to get out early, whatever. So the too long, obvious reasons, there's usually someone in the room after you, or they have their lunch break, and we want to be respectful of the time. The too short has bigger implications for us. So all of our sessions have been approved for continuing education, and we have promised the boards that we'd be offering a certain number of hours of education. In the old days, we actually had to hold their credits or reduce their credits if they came out too early. And in fact, if they do come too early, we won't let them turn in their paperwork, especially the last sessions of the day, because they have to be in that room to get those amount of hours. There's really no excuse for going too short because to me, I wish I had extra time for more interaction, more conversation, and more sharing. So if you find yourself coming up short for some reason because you talk too fast or you misjudge your length of time, please incorporate some kind of activity and discussion to take advantage of that time, because time is a very valuable thing to have. So we talked about arriving late and flustered. That doesn't help anyone. And then the third thing, I'm gonna, especially on behalf of Jasmine, not reading our emails. We try not to over communicate, but when we do communicate, there's usually something either important we need to share with you or that we need in order to be able to move forward on a task that we need to complete. So make us happy puppies and follow these 3 steps. That would be great. So I want to just go in real quickly and just have you guys think about your presentations and talking a little bit about adult learning principles. Learning is a process, not end result. It doesn't just happen. There needs to be a lot of time for people to process information, learn the information, get the information, and then sooner or later it will happen. It's just not this magic thing that happens. So I want you to think a little bit about how you're sharing your content, how you're actually getting them engaged with what you're teaching them. They say, and that looks like my next slide, so I'm not going to jump into that thing. So number two, step out of your comfort zone. So I think we're all comfortable with traditional giving a presentation, dumping information, and going away. We all talk about engagement and interactivity, but that's not necessarily what we're all comfortable with. We're comfortable talking at our audience. We're not, it feels safe and it feels like the right place to be. But we all know it's really not the best thing for audience. So I ask you to maybe step out of your comfort zone and experiment with some kind of maybe non-traditional learning formats and participant involvement or ways to have discussion. And your learners are going to let you know, like, this is working where it isn't. And you just have to sort of modify and move. So think about, like, I've been doing this presentation this way all the time, and is it really the best way to get that information across? The next thing is the person doing the most talking is doing the most learning. And that's why I can do this presentation without looking at anything, because I've done it. I know all this information. You're going to maybe retain 20% of it. I'm hoping maybe more. But I'm the one, every time I do it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I learned that. So let other people do talking. This is where this platform is not helpful at all, like, because I cannot engage and I can't find out what you want to talk about. Maybe you guys have some great ideas on some of these things that I'm addressing, but I can't interact with you. You can do that with your attendees. So please find some way to get them to interact and engage. And I always say, like, the people in the room, sometimes when I do these interactive discussions or find a different way to post, sometimes I'll even do like a little quiz and then have dialogue amongst the quiz and let the person, pick on a person to ask why they answered it that way. Sometimes I learn some really cool, interesting new things from my attendees that I add on to my next presentation. And when you're dealing with people with 20 years of experience in the room, they're going to have stuff to share. So take advantage of them. Don't discard that really important resource, and that will get them engaged and also continue the conversation outside of the room as well by having the attendees share with each other. So I always have trouble saying this. Give them a hunk. Don't give them a hunk. Give them a chunk. So one of the things that sort of is the best practice is to, first of all, look at all the content you're giving and decide. You can't teach everything. So first of all, prioritize and figure out if there are 3 things that I need these people to walk out of this room understanding. What are they? And then anything that doesn't focus on those 3 things, you might need to get rid of it so you can have a little bit more time for discussion and interactivity. So really looking at what are the outcomes that you want, and then break up your content in that way. So focus on area number 1, then have a discussion about it. Maybe have them pair up and do conversation, then go to your next subject. And you're like really like chunk it up, not just like one big hunk of information. So, the more you like put together, the more content you try to put in your presentation, the more likely they are going to just forget it and you're not going to be impactful. So just think about that. And then the other thing I like to throw in is if you do follow through and decide, we're going to have this cool activity, or we're going to make people stand up and do this thing to showcase how many people engage in some activity or some kind of polling or voting. I mean, again, there's a lot of different ideas. I believe on our website we will have a link to different presentation style approaches. And there's tons of stuff on the internet if you want to find some cool ideas. That's how I always find new things to do in presentations. But there's anything that might make anybody uncomfortable, and that could even be speaking out loud or participating in a group. Give people the right to pass. Sometimes your audience needs, I guess, I'd call it a psychological safety net to step out of their comfort zone and try new things. So basically, whenever you do an activity or any kind of peer discussion, tell them that they have the right to pass. That if they don't want to participate and they just want to observe, they are welcome to do that. And oftentimes just giving them permission to observe, next thing you know, they're inching more and more into the group and they're getting the comfort to join. So again, here, those are just some things to think about when you're doing your presentations. And I sort of call this my pro tip about having some movement, and you can actually make movement into a cognitive strategy, according to my slide, a way that people help learn. Um, I like again, identification of audience. We talked about that. Some kind of voting, having them stop and stretch, starting and stretch, breathing, some kind of sitting exercise. Again, this is a health conference. Let's model best behaviors, things that they can do in their classroom, a minute of mindfulness or whatever, and actually give them a minute to prepare to learn. And I think if we do that, then you also will have better results. So again, that's why I said you should never be short in your sessions, because there are all these things that you can be doing. So really quickly, death by PowerPoint. I do have a link to a whole thing about PowerPoint setup. I think the one thing I try to explain to people is that you are sitting, when you're creating your PowerPoint, less than 2 feet away from the screen. So it looks huge, it looks beautiful, it looks easy to read. You have to remember that once it's getting thrown up onto a screen and the room is big, somebody could be sitting 50, 60 feet away from your presentation, and all of a sudden they can't read anything. And I will tell you personally, as my birthdays keep accumulating, the font size I want your PowerPoints to be keeps getting greater. So I would say this under 20, I'm like now saying under 28, and it's too small. You've got to remember, you want people to be able to read them. Any kind of detailed charts and graphs, unless you're just trying to make a huge impression, they're not going to be able to read the details of it. So pull out what you need. PowerPoint has a lot of toys and tools. You don't need to use all of them. Animation, too much of anything, too many colors, too many fonts, too many backgrounds. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. This presentation even, very simple. The other thing I have to say about presentations is if your presentation is a handout, you have too much stuff in your presentation. Your presentation should just be key bullets. That way the reminders are up there for the people and the things that you want to sink in, but then they can actually listen to you. If you're reading this all the time, you're not listening to me, you're reading, and that's happening in your head. It's not happening from your ears to your head. So think about that. Your PowerPoint should be like, it's the visual, it's the bang, it's the pictures and the things that help your content stand out. And I do want to throw in something really quick, because I mentioned the word pictures. We do remind everybody about copyright infringement. It's something I am very strict on, only because we have gotten a couple of copyright cease and desist and infringement cases due to presentations that speakers have given us that we've posted on our website. Basically, just because a photo is on the internet does not mean that you have permission to use it. So any photo, clip art, cartoon, you need to have permission to use to put in your presentation. Otherwise, you are breaking copyright infringement. And just so quickly you understand that what that means is that these companies that own this have software that actually trolls the internet looking for people that have used their image without paying for it, and then they will send a very threatening notice with a large fee that is paid for using it without permission. And again, this is a real thing. It's happened to us. It's happened to us from head to toe presenters. One was a photo, one was a cartoon. So please be very careful with images. Again, it's on the internet does not mean that you have the permission to use it. Last thing, we're getting to the end because I want to get us in right under that hour, is promote your involvement. Toot your horn. Let people know you're speaking at head to toe. First of all, if you haven't liked our Facebook page, you should do it. We are promoting a lot of our presenters, our sponsors, our exhibitors, all the cool things that are happening. If you have a little video you want us to shoot, a teaser video, everybody has a camera on their cell phone. You have a camera on your webcam. You can shoot a little 1-minute promo video of why people should come to your workshop. Let us get it up there. Let us promote you. Let us promote your organization. LinkedIn, your professional listservs, let people know, promote the conference. And then we do have a little customized email signature, I believe, that says, I'm presenting, come see me. You are more than welcome, if you have permission at work, to put that on there. So let people know, like, Head to Toe is, I believe, I know it's a very well-respected conference in the field, especially here in the state of New Mexico. So definitely toot your own horn and let people know that you have been selected to present and share at Head to Toe. And with that, the final thing is deadline dates. So it looks like March 18th was the final deadline date to request lodging if you needed it. Head to Early Bird Eds today. That's a lie. That was actually from our last presentation because this is a repeat. So actually Early Bird has ended, but you can still use the discount code for half off the current rate. And then your presentations are due to our office by April 3rd. And again, if you have changes, we will, of course, allow you to make those up to at the event. But the sooner you get it to us, the less likely you're going to have a problem. So at 56 minutes and 20 seconds, I am now concluding your webinar. If there's any other questions, feel free, or you can stay on the chat. Let us know. But again, thank you for doing your presentation at Head to Toe. We appreciate you. We would not be anything without you. And I look forward to seeing you all at the conference.